What's going on, everyone? It's Justin here, and this right here is the Hasselblad 907X CFV 100C. That is probably the last time I'm going to say the full name in this video, but it is probably one of the most odd, unique, interesting, and expensive camera setups that I've checked out on the channel to date in the world of photography. In essence, it is a camera that has the latest and greatest in terms of modern day technology, including sensor tech, color science, as well as control and lens elements. But at the same time, it's a camera that is also compatible with platforms 70 years ago and allows you to capture what it was like in the old times with film camera fronts and lenses in a 100 megapixel medium format sensor with 16-bit color. It's also interesting because nowadays professional photography comes in many forms, both small setups that are now expanding their way into smartphone cameras, as well as medium format cameras that have become more portable than ever before. It is a very untraditional architecture of a square-bodied camera that can be used at both a waist height in a studio setting. But in my case, I've brought this camera around on my trip to Italy through Lake Como, Milan Design Week, as well as in a studio setting. And I've been able to use this camera in so many different ways. And honestly, I found it to be a lot more versatile than I had originally expected after watching so many videos of it over the years and actually having the temptation to pick one up quite a few times. When it comes to hardware, I would go as far as to say it is one of the most beautiful pieces of tech and photography that I've ever seen. You take a look at how it is built, its chrome finishes that go around the front. As the 907X and the 100C elements click together when you open up the box, to the little dials on the front that control your aperture, your shutter, the control on the top, the little USB flap on the side here, the way the memory card door and battery opens up, as well as the elements of the lens clicking together, and of course, mentioning the fact that you can add accessories such as a viewfinder, a hot shoe adapter, or in this case, a digital handle. Putting all of this together has been so interesting. And you see how there's the leather wrapped elements that go along the side, the badging that comes together between the two generations. In addition to that, just the attention of detail that goes into how beautifully crafted a camera of this price point is. If you use a traditional mirrorless camera, it is a piece of hardware that you kind of have to get used to, unlike the X2D. You almost have to figure out or reprogram the way that you hold the camera, the way that you control the settings, the way that you change things when you go to take that photo. But after a little bit, and exclusively using this camera for photos on my trip to Italy, it started to make a bit more sense as time went on. It's bulky and portable at the exact same time, but on top of that, I found that this little handle here was an absolute must in making the photo experience a lot easier as someone who didn't come from shooting with a waist height camera at any point in my entire life. As someone who was born in the late 90s, I feel like this camera allows me to have an appreciation for just how advanced camera technology was in the mid 1900s, but also how far it has come in its digital era. And Hasselblad, being a company that has been there for that entire history and captured some of the world's most iconic moments, is still innovating today in bringing the two worlds together and having that perfect balance. On the spec side of things, of course, it has a 100 megapixel medium format BSI CMOS sensor, and that is the main thing here. It's the exact same sensor that you find on the X2D 100C, and the only big difference from a technical standpoint between the two cameras is that it doesn't have any in-body image stabilization. And that is an important factor. If you're doing a lot of motion or low light photography, having any ounce of the stabilization, if you're running gun, is extremely important, but in the portable format, it simply isn't possible. It does also feature, of course, the Hasselblad Natural Color Solution, also known as HNCS, 16-bit color, 15 stops of dynamic range, and it also has phase detection autofocus and face detection, which in the past I know there was some complaints of the Hasselblad autofocus, and in some aspects it doesn't have features such as continuous or eye tracking that you might see on traditional mirrorless cameras, but it is a very solid autofocus system for a Hasselblad camera, and I didn't really find it to be a big issue on my trip. So let's go ahead and talk about lenses. Hasselblad has a wide selection of lenses throughout different focal lengths, and you have the option to use lenses that are from the XCD lineup, which is, I feel like, the bread and butter for the 907X lineup. From having the lightweight XCD 38, the 55, and the 75, I found that I was using the 55 the most. On medium format, this is a focal length that I am very familiar with. And the fun element of this lens is that you're able to actually go between manual and autofocus through this little ring right here. And just like the camera itself, it is so beautifully crafted with the orange accents, the little numbers showing, how smooth the ring feels, the clicks on the back. With an aperture of 2.5, it was a really good blend between portrait, lifestyle, and also studio. Being able to not have too wide of an image in a very popular focal length nowadays in this medium format was kind of like the sweet spot. I found that in my previous setup with the 20 to 35 on the X2D, I always wanted to just be able to punch in a bit more. And obviously you have the option of capturing an image at 35, cropping in as many times as you want essentially with the amount of megapixels, but it was just something different about capturing portraits on the XCD 55. So if you guys have been watching the channel for a while, you know I am a huge fan of Notion and I completely live by it. I have all of our videos and our creative timelines built into Notion, and I've trained my entire team to live by Notion as well. And it's amazing that over the years, they've introduced some major updates, including Notion AI and Notion Calendar. And now I'm very excited to show you guys Notion Mail. This is amazing because I've personally been using the built-in mail app on my computer for quite a while now. I haven't really adapted to any external platforms. But with Notion Mail, it is an AI-powered organization, smart drafting, and flexible scheduling that takes all of the amazing features of how Notion is built and translates it over to Mail, saving you time and, most importantly, keeping your inbox nice and organized. It automatically labels and sorts incoming emails based on what is important to you, personalizes your inbox to match your work, flexible grouping, filtering, and sorting. And it also has built-in scheduling with Notion Calendar to be able to sync everything across very easily, not only within the calendar, but also with your Notion database as well, if you would like it to. I'm personally someone who doesn't like to split my inbox into specific tabs, but instead have a little flag on each end that is color-coded, just like the way I have my Notion database set up, that shows me the different categories that I'm able to still filter through at a glance. I also really like the quick reply function. That is something that I've been using both on social media as well as in email when it works, and Notion has that built in. And you're also able to write, edit, and sharpen emails with AI, and that is probably the function that I personally use the most. And I just feel like it is the ultimate combination of features that are not exactly new, but the fact that it is all built in and able to work in harmony with your existing Notion database and calendar is what makes it so effective. So if you guys want to go ahead and check it out for yourself, I'm going to leave a link on screen and in the description section below, and a huge thanks to Notion Mail for sponsoring this video. As for the interface, you have all of the buttons right here. And the interface itself is one that is super clean, very minimal, easy to navigate. And from there, you're able to touch and change all of your different settings, or you can use the buttons that have been lined up on the bottom. But similar to the other Hasselblad cameras, they've really focused on minimalism, not having as many buttons as usual, and just focusing on the framing itself, because honestly, modern day cameras have a really bad interface system. This interface was very easy to navigate, but I also found that having the handle here made things a lot easier because it just became second nature, changing stuff like the aperture, the shutter speed, toggling around the autofocus elements with the little pointed joystick right here just made the shooting experience a lot faster. When it comes to the interface, I really have no complaints. I think Hasselblad does a really good job here. And even though it might be a little bit intimidating when you hear the Hasselblad name, when you go ahead and use the camera itself, it is extremely simple. I mean, everything is so straightforward, it just makes sense, and I don't understand why every camera company doesn't simplify their interface like this. When it comes to some of the accessories, I've got all of them set up right here. And the one that I would recommend is the control grip. This enables over 30 different configurations of custom buttons and everything, including the autofocus and manual focus toggle. You can also customize the menu button, the play button, shutter, little joystick on the back, and you also have the control right here for shutter and aperture. Being able to change things very quickly with one hand has been awesome. I think it looks really cool as well, but in terms of the actual usability, I actually found it pretty difficult to try to navigate everything from just the 100C camera back and the display built in. But once I had the control grip, it really did bring it back to a more traditional camera setup that I was used to while still having a more limited button set. The optical viewfinder, on the other hand, is really fun. This one right here has been updated with markers for the XCD 25, 38, and the 55. So as you look through the viewfinder, it is just bringing you back into the old days of a traditional viewfinder that you're looking at the little markers and that sets your frame guide and your center point. And I mean, again, it's so much fun. You do have to take the 907X and the 100C element in half and like break it apart to put the actual optical viewfinder on, which is a bit of work and not something that I'm very used to. But I mean, just look at this entire setup right here. It's just so incredible, the images that we're able to capture and the fun that you're able to have within this whole build. So let's go ahead and talk about the actual editing process and taking a look at some of the photos that I captured on the 907X 100C. Beginning with my images from Lake Como, I took a combination of architecture, landscape, and portrait images. This is a place that has so rich in detail, in history, and being there for Milan Design Week, I couldn't have thought of a more perfect scenario as we went around the Lake Como villas and took pictures of some of the most stunning properties on Earth. I mean, I was just blown away by some of the homes that we got to see. And these are more like traditional images that are in a pretty well-lit scenario. You can see that there's plenty of detail. The light capture, you can see I did overexpose on some of the images, but that was something that we were able to fix in post. But generally speaking, very ideal scenarios that showcase the amount of detail, capture, and reframability of photos like this. In this next portrait image right here, you guys know that this camera really does thrive in portrait photography. The color space is often one that is most noticeable in portrait images with skin tones, different lighting scenarios, and I mean, just like our experience with the X2D, it captures every last detail that exists. Moving on to studio photography, I rented the studio to finish up my film for my Porsche 911. You guys saw me do a review of the X2D when we were filming the outdoor clips, but in the studio setting, just bringing this camera around, capturing details of the interior and the exterior, playing around with the lighting, the endless look of the backdrop, I was able to grab a deck of beautiful details of the car in different formats that I would end up using for like an editorial piece in the future. Hasselblad's Phocus Mobile app is also made for editing Hasselblad images within that Hasselblad color science. And oftentimes it is really good for processing, whether it is noise reduction, which actually works extremely well as just having the best understanding of the Hasselblad color space. I will admit, I edited everything in Lightroom because it's what I'm used to. It's what I've paid for cloud storage on. But the workflow on Phocus Mobile is really, really good. And I feel like if you're willing to make that switch over and edit Hasselblad specific images on their own platform, the end result oftentimes, just from a processing standpoint, is superior. So at the end of the day, what is the experience like between the 907X 100C and the X2D 100C? This is a topic that has been talked about very often. And funny enough, I would have attributed the X2D 100C to be more of a run and gun camera, one that you bring on trips to capture street photography because of the stabilization element that is very impressive and definitely an important factor when you're capturing at different shutter speeds in low light in faster scenarios. But I actually found that this was a better travel camera because it made things so much more fun. I was just focusing on using the 55 and the 38 for the most part, and it just made my photography more intentional. I mean, both are impressive cameras, but I will say, if you're doing commercial photography, for editorial work, for street photography, having the XUD and the stabilization just makes a lot more sense. I feel like it's almost a no-brainer. This has honestly been such a joy. And as I mentioned, a few years ago, I was kind of tempted to purchase a camera like this. I just wasn't sure how much I would actually use it as someone who has so much equipment. But as a gearhead, with a bunch of like camera setups, lenses, and different mediums, this is one that has made it into my camera bag when I'm traveling, just because of every trip that's coming up. I just think of what I could capture on the 907X 100C. And that isn't to say you need a camera like this to do that, because you don't. But if you're looking to spend the money on the very best camera that is gonna give you an emotional experience and an attachment to your art, and one that gives you an extra appreciation for that, then by all means. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you go ahead and drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one.